98% of our investors are from all over the country and all over the world. And it's a way for people who do not live in Alabama to still purchase the single family homes, get the benefit of the low property taxes, and still get an overall great rate of return on their investment.
This episode brought to you by Suites at Madison. Meeting and conference rooms for rent by the hour, week, month, or year. Suites at Madison, where business gets done. Check them out at www.downtowntampaoffice.com. Now, on to the show.
You are listening to the Invest Florida Real Estate Show, covering topics in lending, buy and sell strategies, property management, hot markets, and tips and tools to guide you along the way on your path to real estate success. You want Florida investment real estate talk? You have come to the right place. And now, our hosts, Eric Odum and Steven Silverman.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Invest Florida Real Estate Show. This is your co-host, Eric Odum, along with Steven Silverman. Steven, it's a crazy market. I feel like a broken record.
So the real estate market is like the seesaw. One ends up and one ends down. You know, right now it's a seller's or an owner's market, and buyers and tenants are not in a stronger position to negotiate, so they have to adjust. But I'm seeing things I've never seen before. Tenants are being forced, even with a letter of intent, to give proof of funds, and same with buyers and proof of funds just to qualify themselves, and then only qualified buyers are being considered. So if you're a buyer or a tenant, I think, you have to adjust as best you can, but prepare and give everything you can up front to put yourself in a better position.
Yeah, and us as brokers, you feel like many times it's a waste of time. You get a buyer who wants to submit an offer, and you try to counsel them that they're not going to be taken seriously with the offer they're going to submit, and they get upset with you. They feel like, you're negotiating against them, but it just happens time and again. You put in an offer, and you don't even get a response. And then at that point going forward, that seller, if he's got something else, doesn't even want to entertain anything from that buyer. He just doesn't think the buyer's serious, and doesn't understand the market. And so it's a tough. It puts us in a tough situation, Stephen. It's you try to counsel these buyers at what's going on, but they're going to do what they're going to do, and then they get shut out.
Well, it's definitely not a time to start negotiating on bargains. It's not. We are not where we were 5 or 6 years ago.
Well, there are always deals, but you're gonna have to turn over a lot of rocks and get kicked in the groin a lot of times. And as a broker, it's just a waste of time to submit offer and not even get response to, because you got a buyer who, is not really aware of what's happening in the market. And then your reputation gets sullied because you're bringing buyers that they don't feel really are qualified. They don't see them being serious. Like if the market's
then there's the other end of the spectrum too, where some of the sellers are so caught up in it that the prices they're asking are completely unrealistic, and you have to counsel the sellers too that they're just going to appeal to a smaller universe of buyers, and at the end they'll probably come down also. But it's just. Everything's a negotiation now. It's not easy times. And people think like, wow, you're in commercial real estate, everything's great. But actually, there's a lot more negotiation going on now, pre-negotiation, than we ever had to do before.
That's for a fact. Want to take time to recognize Sandman, who left us a review, says, I'm your number one fan. Keep it up, guys. It's really important. Appreciate that, the kind words, Sandman. It's really important for us to show that our listeners are paying attention. And we work really hard at trying to get guests each and every episode. And first thing they'll go is to see who's listening to us and what our listeners think about us. And so it's you guys are helping yourselves if you help us by going and leaving us a review on the iTunes store or Stitcher or any of the other mediums, podcast mediums. So Sandman, again, want to appreciate, thank you and tell you how much we appreciate you leaving that review. Stephen, today we've got a little bit of a different topic. I know we're the Invest Florida show, but we're going to talk outside of Florida today.
Well, so, You're right. We're the Invest Florida show as brokers, and the Invest Florida show, we focus on Florida. But sometimes it's just interesting to think out of the box a little bit. And today we're going to look out of the box a little bit. We'll talk about construction and what's going on there and how it's affecting real estate. But let's take a peek at what's going on close to us.
Yeah, and we've got we're going to be talking with someone from a border state who's actually picking up a lot of business from Florida because, as we all know, it's increasingly challenging. It's challenging everywhere. We're going to be talking to someone from Alabama today. It's increasingly challenging everywhere to find deals, but to find double-digit cash-on-cash returns in the Florida market is. It's becoming more and more challenging, and this particular investor and builder is doing just that in a bordering state, and we're gonna have a chance to figure out what's going on in their market and why some Florida investors are looking at some of these places like Georgia and South Carolina and Alabama while they're becoming more frustrated in finding deals in the state. We're still very bullish on Florida. Love it. There's always deals. It just, sometimes if you're looking for a little bit more cash flow, sometimes you gotta look at some of the other areas around the country for to be able to do so. So, Stephen, anything else before we roll to our guest?
Let's roll. Today we have with us Lindsay Davis. Lindsay serves as the Chief Executive Officer for Spartan Invest, Atlas Rental Property, and Corinth Construction. With Lindsay's leadership, Spartan Invest has ranked on the Inc. 5000's fastest growing companies in the country for 8 consecutive years since 2014. Lindsay is a millennial entrepreneur and has played an integral role in creating 5 brands and 4 companies, generating a combined revenue of almost $50 million. She manages the company's entire retail portfolio, which consists of over 1,400 rental properties. She also coordinates, manages, and directs the supply network of 200 vendors. As CEO of Spartan Invest, it is her passion to help others find their financial freedom using their full-service turnkey process. Lindsay has been recognized by the Birmingham Business Journal as one of the decade's top 40 under 40. She has received numerous awards and Stevie Awards for women in business. She also gives back to her community by supporting charities. Lindsay, welcome to the Invest Florida show.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Lindsay, we really appreciate your time that you're investing with us today. I think that the first question that our listeners are going to say, well, this Lindsay's in Alabama. Doesn't have anything to do with Florida. Mm-hmm. But I think the reason we're talking today is that folks in Florida are reaching outside of their markets because they're really struggling to find returns. And Alabama's a little bit different than Florida. Obviously you guys are going through a lot of growth, but the returns are still pretty healthy there. Your cash-on-cash returns are still pretty healthy. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you're working on? And then we're going to get into construction pricing.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you're right. Those investors that are looking outside of the Florida market, they're not alone. And the vast majority of our investor clients are out-of-state investors. So essentially, Spartan Invest, like you said, is a full-service turnkey company. So we purchase, renovate, and then rent single-family homes. And during that renovation, we handle all of your larger CapEx items to reduce the long-term maintenance of the property. We essentially set the property up as an investment property. And then we have our property management company in-house, Atlas Rental Property, that manages it after the fact. So we're basically the one-stop shop for out-of-state real estate investing. And so 98% of our investors are from all over the country and all over the world. And it's a way for people who do not live in Alabama to still purchase the single family homes, get the benefit of the low property taxes, and still get an overall great rate of return on their investment.
So what do you call a great rate of return? Because, in some places here, real estate residential has gone so high that investors are willing to take very low returns, maybe 3-4%. What are you achieving in Alabama?
Right. Yes. We've definitely seen those take a dive in the last 18 months. However, Alabama has been fairly consistent. Our rental rates are on the increase to help that return. But right now on leverage funds and, anything that you're leveraging financing on the purchase of the single family home, we average from about 11 to 14% return. And then cash, we are consistently 7 to 7.5.
Yeah, that's certainly a lot different to what we're seeing in some of the other markets here. And that's why we wanted to talk to you and see what's going on in our neighbor, Alabama.
Right. And, new construction, it's fairly similar. We're a little bit lower on your cash returns. And just because, the cost to build has been no different for us in Alabama than it has been in the rest of the country. But we're right now at about a 6% cash return for new construction homes. So, overall, still a really great return on your investment if you are interested in getting into real estate.
But let's talk, Lindsay, a little bit about what's going on in the construction market, because, boy, it's been a volatile year. I'm building a home for myself. Part of my investment strategy has been to move every couple of years and to take advantage of the 1120 and to find a dirt cheap property, build it or renovate it and then live in it, and then I scrape the capital gains off of it, and I don't have to pay. And it's a great retirement a strategy that I've used over the years. But I started on a new build. I tore down a home in I want to say it was like September of last year. And then when we started to, we did pricing on construction. And then in January, we went back and started to look at it again when we, got permits pulled and whatnot. And all of a sudden I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're like 25 to 30% higher than when I priced this thing back out just a few months earlier. So it's been crazy. And I think everybody who's been doing renovations, they sort of just duck and took cover for a while because these costs are getting away from us. So why don't you talk a little bit about what's happening with construction costs, the commodity pricing, and what you're seeing coming down the road? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? What are you seeing?
Right, and I think it's been no surprise that we've seen such a dramatic increase in the cost of construction. At various points during the pandemic, lumber was up 252%, copper 11%, iron and steel 25%, and just general building material, fixtures, et cetera, has been up 10%. So you accumulate all of those increases, and you're talking about a substantial amount that contractors are having to essentially fork out to build new homes. So yes, 100%. A lot of new home builders have kind of taken cover and tried to wait for lumber prices to stabilize. We have over the last month seen them come down quite a good bit. They're not yet at the pre-pandemic levels, but just to kind of get an idea of how drastically it's affected us, in that right now we had a lumber package be delivered this week, and 6 weeks ago it was $15,000 more.
Wow.
That same exact order. I mean, so that is how quickly and drastically we've seen these prices move over the last 18 months. And it's really hard to project. We've stopped putting all properties under contract until they are almost fully complete, which, has hurt our ability to build in larger quantities because we're holding all of the capital until kind of later in the projects. But, we broke even on new construction homes and didn't see any profit because we placed the contract too soon before, we had all of the cost, and a lot of those increases hurt. So we've seen a lot of the burden be taken on the home builders, and there is no choice but to pass that to the buyers. And of course that's pushed, that's forced appreciation, and, and obviously interest rates have done the same. So there's been a lot of struggle just with new construction in general over the last year and a half. Yeah,
I mean, that was what made me choke. So on my project, it was quite a shock. I mean, I just going into Home Depot and I'm trying to buy 4x8 sheets of plywood, and it was I was blinking make sure that is the actual number. I said, it can't be the number. Yeah, that's the number. It's impossible. This is 4 months ago. It was a third of that price. And now you're telling me it's this. And they're like, yep, sorry. So did you ever get any feedback, Lindsay, as to why that was? Like what happened?
Well, I think that there are multiple factors in the drastic increase to lumber. A few of them have been just the increase in demand into single-family homes, and the pandemic really pushed that. We saw a huge kind of influx into the more suburban areas and away from the urban areas through the pandemic. You've got more people who are working remotely, wanting to build. So inventory was already at a lower point pre-pandemic just because of the recession and how long it took for new construction to start back up. So, and then you had the pandemic, which forced people out of urban areas wanting to build more. Demand went up. Lumber mills were very hesitant and reluctant to increase to meet the demand. So anytime you have a demand supply problem, obviously it's going to drastically affect the prices. And then some trade agreements with Canada regarding lumber transportation were affected over the last 2 years. And so that also played a part in the cost of lumber. So there's been a variety of different reasons. And I feel like probably over the last year and a half, it's been kind of a perfect storm.
So does it feel like we're coming out of that now? I mean, or is that something that could come back? We're right in the middle of this same whole COVID. It hasn't gone away. In fact, it's got worse. So.
Yeah, and I mean the whole Canada situation. I mean, like what is going on? I mean, what's going on with the trade agreement there? Have you seen?
Go ahead.
No, I'm just seeing if there's if you're getting any insight to what's going on there.
Well, as far as right now, we've seen it stabilize. And I think a lot of the stability over the last 6 weeks has come only from, home builders being reluctant and home builders, the owners are reluctant to start new construction homes and to start building, waiting for prices to go down. So as soon as that demand backtracks a little bit, it does help with lumber prices. But a lot of new builders are still very hesitant about jumping into new projects just because we don't know. We do not know where we're going to land on pricing. If you start a project today and it increases 100% in a week, which we can, we've seen happen.
We've seen, yeah.
It'll just stop a construction project.
Yeah, no question about it. And what I've seen with some of the builders here is there's a stickiness to what they're quoting on their projects for exactly the reason that you talk about. So, okay, well, prices seem to be headed in the right direction right now, but that pricing's not really being immediately passed on to the consumer because contractors don't know. And they're trying to provide some cushion in there for themselves because they got shocked too. People that are bidding in August on jobs, in July and jobs, lost their shirts if they're starting in that job in January.
100%. Yes. We've held every project, every new construction project. We have about 40 new construction homes in various stages of build. And we've held every single one of them from release to an investor client until we are cutting sod and placing sod in the properties just because we got burned last year. We really started building in March of 2020. It was a terrible time to start a new construction company, by the way. Did not have that crystal ball to foresee a global pandemic when we started our new construction company. But we really started kicking things up in summer and placing properties preemptively under contract with investor clients and didn't make any money on them just because our material costs skyrocketed. So yes, I can definitely understand the hesitancy with home builders.
And where is the demand coming from in Alabama? Is it from people who moving away from rental properties, or is it from people moving in from out of state into the Sun Belt? How's the market growing there?
So both in Birmingham and in Huntsville, we've seen a lot of population growth just due to job demand, and there's a lot of positives to living in Alabama. I know a lot of people in Florida might disagree with that one, and that's okay.
We're not saying anything.
Football rivalry stuff, but I think that the lower cost of living is very attractive, especially given that you don't necessarily have to work in the urban areas, given the acceptance with remote working with a lot of companies. We've seen a tremendous influx, in just job growth and manufacturing companies coming to Alabama with low tax incentives. And, so I think there's a variety of reasons why Alabama is very attractive to move to, especially given the job growth.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily get the attention that the Carolinas get, for example, as an alternative to Florida. I mean, really, Florida is sort of the gold standard. People think about coming from California and New York, and obviously the dollars show that the flows are into Florida massively. And then I think investors that sort of look for overflow, they're like, well, the Carolinas are pretty nice too. And they're looking at South Carolina and North Carolina. And I think Alabama sort of gets pushed back. But Alabama has pockets of high growth and good opportunity and good population growth. And it's something that, folks really just, they just might not be that aware of. So here's your chance to plug Alabama.
Right. Our Huntsville area has seen almost a 40% population growth in the last 6 years. So, just given the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, FBI, the Google Data Center, the Toyota Mazda plant that is being placed there, there are just thousands and thousands of jobs coming to North Alabama where, that in and of itself will attract a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So where do your investors come from?
So most of our investor clients are coming from, well, really all over the country, but most are coming from areas in which the real estate and real estate investing just doesn't make a lot of sense. Southern California, New York, Hawaii, just those more higher cost of living areas to which a 10 to 15% rate of return would just be impossible. And I think that's where Alabama is the most attractive, in that you can get that type of return. And if, our average price is $120,000, so you're only out of pocket $25,000 to purchase the property if you finance. So you're not having to come out of pocket that much, which also opens the door to a lot of different wealth classes with investors.
And how has the appreciation been?
So pre-COVID, because we've seen a drastic increase in appreciation, obviously through the last year and a half, like we've been talking about. But historically, Alabama hasn't seen the steep increases. We've been more very steady, and where we've averaged 4 to 5% over the last 5 years. And of course, different pockets, your A+ areas appreciate more than your, B- areas. One thing we have seen, and I'd be very interested to see if it was similar in Florida, was we saw a higher appreciation rate in our C+, B- areas than we did in our A+ areas over the last year and a half, which I found pretty interesting. And that most of your turnkey rental areas, we historically see a 2 to 3% appreciation. And over the last year and a half, we've seen up to 9 to 10% in those specific areas. So that just means, hey, like the prices and the investment, it's good in those B- B areas.
And so talk to us a little bit about, I know you're going to have to let you go here soon, but we wanted to talk a little bit more about, forget about COVID for a moment, construction pricing, and we know what kind of, but why don't you get out your crystal ball and what keeps you up at night, or what opportunities do you see sort of going forward in terms of what's going on with construction and construction pricing and anything. This is your opportunity now to just sort of talk about, like, what do you see? What's coming?
Oh, man, I really wish I could have that crystal ball. And only because what we've experienced in new construction over the last year and a half has been pretty drastic. And I wouldn't say it was as drastic as the recession. Obviously, everything stopped, halts, and so many home builders are filing for bankruptcy and everything. That is what would keep me up at night. However, that is a plus in building rental properties, in that at the end of the day, people will always need a place to live, no matter what, whether they can purchase the property or rent the property. So we're not recession proof by any means. No company is, but we are a little bit more recession resilient in that regard. But what keeps me up would be just a complete drop, a complete bottom out like 2009. And I think that's what keeps really anybody in the construction industry up at night, and for just fear reasons, not necessarily what we think will happen. It's just kind of a worst case scenario.
Yeah, we all of us who lived through the 2008 mess with this, that's what we fear. The rug pulled out from under us. Right. That will definitely keep you up at night. We work with a lot of home builders who had a really rough time during that time. So, yep. So building the rental model, building that instead of a custom home is very attractive to a lot of home builders because it is a little bit more stable. Yep.
So, Lindsay, if people want to learn a little bit more about your company, how can they reach you?
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about Spartan Invest, you can visit us online at spartaninvest.com. If you would like to know a little bit more about our various markets or new construction or something in particular, or even our property management company, you can go to the Contact Us at spartaninvest.com and fill out one of those forms, and one of our sales reps will be in touch and set up kind of a one-on-one consultation and really just answer any questions that you've got and load you down with as much information that you want.
Awesome. Lindsay, really appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me on, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
And that was Lindsay Davis talking the Alabama market, Stephen. It's kind of unusual for us to do that. But she was not just talking about the Alabama market, she was also talking what's going on in construction pricing. And it's been a really volatile roller coaster over the past, what would you say? It's been a little over a year now. Been crazy.
Sure, and it puts investors in a very difficult position, especially those who want to do value add or development. And sometimes it's better just to take a step back and try and see what's going on globally, because she mentioned, which was astounding, that 6 weeks ago, she paid $15,000 more than she did today for the same amount of lumber, I think it was, or steel. And so, but hopefully prices will now normalize and get back to some kind of predictability.
Hopefully, but we've still got ships stacked up at the ports. They can't unload fast enough, and we're still commodity pricing is still very volatile, and it's going to be probably going on for a while, Stephen, until the supply chain gets straightened out. I know chip pricing, we've talked about this, is insane, and just it's causing ripples. All of these supply chain issues causing ripples, causing some inflation, which has got investors on pins and needles too. So, Stephen, Lindsay was a great guest. Where else can folks go to listen to great guests about Florida real estate?
So a great place to go is www.investfloridashow.com. That's our website where we have our archives of all our past guests. And also download the app, which you can listen to the podcast while you're mobile or in the gym or doing something else.
Guys, as always, we appreciate the time that you invest with us each and every episode. And until next time, hasta la vista.
You've just listened to the Invest Florida podcast with Eric Odum and Stephen Silverman. Join us every week for actionable real estate investment ideas, and of course, visit our website at www.investfloridashow.com for more shows and tips on how to earn a cash flow in the real estate market in Florida. While hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show have no reason to doubt the validity of comments of our guests, we do not warranty their accuracy. Please check with your legal, financial, and tax advisors before entering into any investment. Returns will vary from person to person and deal to deal based on unique circumstances. All information expressed in this show is for educational purposes only. Opinions of the guests are not necessarily shared by the hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show.